come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios, which we will talk about in just a few moments. Today is Tuesday. It's July 10th already. The year of our Lord 2018. But wait, there's more. You got to belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Biff is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, which indicates that you can listen to the show and chat at shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny via your favorite search engine. Or you can watch on the SHR Media Facebook page or the SHR Media YouTube channel and enjoy all the buttery political goodness. Now, in hour one tonight, we're going to talk about SCOTUS. We're going to talk about various happy stories. And we're also going to talk about and address politics. In hour two, hour zwei, we're going to have the pleasure of KAISER SHUFF coming in and calling in from who knows where the hell he could be. He's an active kind of guy. And he, as we already know, having spoken to him earlier, this dude goes all around the world. So we have no idea where he's going to be calling from. It could be from some kind of an unknown bunker somewhere. Now, I can't show you, but I'll talk about this just for a few minutes, and then we're gonna get into some happy stories, because boy, do I have some happy stories to tell you guys. But all around here, you can't see it. I don't have a camera that faces this way. But Sean Lewis, co-owner of the SHR Media Network, along with Clint, Sackhead's Clint, Sean Lewis came back from vacazione and lit a fire under his butt, and he changed the studio all around, and it's going to change some more. Now, I don't know what the background is what that's going to look like. That may change too. This is a late night show, so that's why I've turned all the lights off, and then for the chat show, all the lights come on, or any other show if I do BDR 529 on the weekend, and I've only done one of those. In any event, Sackhead Sean has been working his butt off, changing everything around here. I mean, the desks over there have changed. Here's something vitally important for people that listen to the chat show. And then I'm going to give you a clue about the chat show tomorrow, because there will be a chat show tomorrow. But one thing that's vitally important, if you ever listen to the chat show, many people, hundreds of thousands of people have complained about this very self-same thing. And we finally realized that we need to do something about it, and that's this. People have been saying for literally hundreds of years now, every 5 minutes, why is it that Sackhead's Clint bashes his microphone? And we can hear it on the radio. We can watch it, you know. We're paying thousands of dollars a year to watch him bash a microphone. And good God, can he stop bashing the microphone for just a moment? Well, Sackhead Sean, being the highly intelligent individual that he is, has now, and you can't see it over there, but he's He's literally, this is what's funny. He's literally taken the microphone away from Clint, put it on a stand that isn't connected to the table at all, and also between the two tables, he has taped rubber pieces so that if Clint happens to smack the table, for example, that it won't affect the microphone and it won't affect the table next to him. I call that, quite frankly, thinking ahead. Hey, welcome in chat to Mike. Welcome to Michael John Pasqua. And welcome to Whiskey Dale for being in chat already. Thank you ever so kindly for that. Now, the other thing that I want to preview, if you follow me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, I kind of let the cat out of the bag, and I'm really greatly looking forward to it. The Chat Show was not on last week, and one of the reasons was that Sackhead's Clint was not available. Well, I can't tell you what he was doing because that's for tomorrow. In any event, have we got a special guest lined up for tomorrow? Gosh, who was it that I was just talking about having revamped the studio? Okay, there's your clue, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow night on the Chat Show. It'll be bulbous. There will be bulbosity unrestrained. In other words, that'll be a really good time. See, okay, just like I said. Whiskey Dale in chat right there says, that banging the mic stand drives me crazy. Okay? And that is Sackhead's Sean thinking ahead and saying, you know, that's a problem and we need to solve it. So coming in here today, the studio being brand new and kind of all changed. Even the cat cam has changed. There's going to be a different angle on the cat cam. It's a lot more organized. Maybe I'm going to have to do a video sometime about how things have changed in here. But apparently, Sackhead Sean has ideas about making the desk a little bit different and whatnot. We'll get to that when that comes. And if the day does come, then I will be sending out some photos of that. In the meantime, you know what time it is? I think
it's time for happy stories and good times.
I'd say the first happy story is this. Remember the 12 kids that were trapped in the cave? The Thai forces, special forces, and SEALs in Thailand have now rescued all 12 kids and gotten them out. And their soccer coach has been freed as well. The last remaining member of the Wild Boars soccer team and their assistant coach have been pulled out of a flooded cave in Thailand, bringing an end to a nearly 3-week ordeal that prompted an international rescue effort and captivated audiences around the world. Now stop. Let's back up just a moment. If you remember, it wasn't more than about 2, 3, 4 days ago that some people were saying, I'm afraid these kids are going to be trapped in this cave for potentially months. Then the other very sad aspect of the story was that one of the Thai Navy SEALs, the equivalent of a Navy SEAL, lost his life while trying to bring oxygen to the kids in the cave. So this incident already cost the life of one very, very good man trying to rescue these kids. The 12th boy and his coach were the last of the team to be rescued Tuesday after a complicated 3-day operation to extricate the team they became trapped on June 23rd when rising floodwater cut them off deep inside the cave. In the last 18 days, what began as a local search for the missing 13 turned into a complex rescue operation involving literally hundreds of experts who flew in from around the world to help. The parents of the boys have maintained a constant vigil outside the cave since they went missing, praying for their safe return. Now, the story that I'm reading from has a graphic in it that I can't place onto the computer right now for everybody to see. But here's what happened in a nutshell. They drugged the kids, and I am not kidding. They provided some kind of drug, the likes of which I do not know, which helped to calm down the fears of the kids. Because here's what they had to do. They had to put breathing apparatus on these kids, some of whom had never been swimming before, then outfit them with apparatus, take them down into the water, through these caves in the darkness, through some occasional very tight portals to get them to freedom, again with masks, uh, perhaps with fins. There were airlines, etc., that went to the kids, and they were pulled throughout this cave system to get them up to freedom. For kids that number one, they've been scared completely crazy for the past 18 days, and then to ask them to put on a mask, go back into the water, which was rising, and they were fearful of the water coming in completely because of the heavy rains outside. That's a hell of a task. And apparently the people that conducted this rescue are incredible, incredible people. That's one of the happiest stories that I know of immediately right now. Here's another happy story. This is from USPatriotsVoice.com, and I really enjoy this. Now, the headline is this: Japanese Prime Minister tells the United Nations to shove it. He will not take in any Muslim, air quote, refugees. From the United Nations, Japan's Prime Minister said Tuesday that his nation needs to attend to its own demographic challenges posed by falling birth rates and an aging population before opening its doors to refugees. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced the UN General Assembly that Japan is ramping up assistance in response to the exodus of refugees to Europe from the Middle East and Africa. He said Japan will provide $1.5 billion in emergency aid for refugees and for stabilization of communities facing upheaval. But speaking to reporters late Tuesday, he poured cold water on the idea of Japan opening its doors to those fleeing. Stop. Let me back up and state the obvious for those who may not know that it is quite so obvious. Japan is one of the most ethnocentric nations in the world, and historically has not very much cared for outsiders. And because it's that ethnocentricity that has allowed them, in the face of many, many challenges over the decades, to have a real survival mentality. And so the mentality of the Japanese is, we're a small island, we have limited resources, and Abe obviously came to his sense and said, you know what? We have a sense of cultural identity, and we don't have historical Alzheimer's, like apparently Europe does, and like a lot of people want the United States of America to have. So we can look across the waters and see what's happening in Europe. We don't want to duplicate that effort right here. And for that, to Prime Minister Abe, I say wonderful. Now there's another wonderful story like this. This is from the Daily Caller. And just when you thought that it was safe to go back in the ocean and that you wouldn't hear boom, 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 it's not safe to go back in the water. And you may hear that sound. Like I say, from the Daily Caller. Hillary Clinton to appear at Teachers Union Conference where Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren are also speaking. Now, do what BZ calls the logical extension on that. Now, why possibly would those three people, what link do they have to go? Oh, that's right, BZ. You know what that is, and so does everybody else. They were all presidential candidates in 2016. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? You may be. Failed 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton is planning on appearing at a convention for the American Federation of Teachers this weekend. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reports that Clinton will speak on Friday, while Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders will speak Saturday and Sunday, respectively. Clinton's appearance at the same conference with Warren and Sanders, two possible Democratic challengers to President Trump in 2020, comes at what they call a curious time. Speculation. This is what makes it a happy story, by the way. Speculation that Clinton may run for president again in 2020 has been making headlines in recent days. In a widely cited recent column for the New York Post, Michael Goodwin wondered, is Hillary Clinton secretly planning to run in 2020? And here's why this is a happy story. Because this is the best that the Democrats have to field. They're going to run this old crone out again, along with Pocahontas and a socialist, because what's better than a false Indian, a lady that can't stop coughing, And an avowed socialist like Alexandria OC. It doesn't get any better than that. So I say, you know what? You trot out DNC. You trot out all three of those people because they did so much winning for you prior. So that's why I consider it to be a happy story. Now, there is even a fourth happy story. Oh my gosh, we're nailing happy stories left and right. And that's this. This is from NFL.com. Well, you think you can see where this is going already, can't you? Sure. And it's this. NFLPA, the National Football League Players Association, files a grievance against the NFL's anthem policy. So the NFL Players Association announced today, it filed a grievance against the league's new national anthem policy. It's bad. In the statement, the NFLPA said the NFL agreed to hold discussions in hopes of finding a mutual solution to the issue. The statement in full reads, our union filed its non-injury grievance today on behalf of all players, challenging the NFL's recently imposed anthem policy. The union's claim is that this new policy, imposed by the NFL's governing body without consultation with the NFLPA, is inconsistent with collective bargaining agreement and infringes on player rights. Stop. You already being the insightful bastards and bastardettes that you are, having listened to my show many times, you already know where BZ is taking this. That's this. I have written off the NFL. They can all go to hell. I haven't watched a full NFL game in two seasons, and I ain't starting this year. As far as I'm concerned, the NFL is done. Once all these jackanapes started taking a knee and pissing on the American flag, in my humble opinion, and dissing the U.S. military and all the men and women who died for that flag, that they have the liberty of dissing in any fashion that they wish, depending upon whether it's approved contractually, you see, I decided that my days of watching NFL games are over. So this is a happy story because you know what's going to happen? These guys are not going to get it. And so when they start playing again in August, and when they have, my God, that's just next month, as a matter of fact. So when they start going to training camps, and then they have practice games, and they start ramping this stuff back up again, do you possibly foresee that in the future there will be more kneeling? I do. And I'll tell you what, NFL, as I said before, this is the make or break year for you. If you continue with this bullshit, you're going to be done. And people that are like me, that watch this not for politics at all, I couldn't give one ragged fuck about any of the political positions of any of the players. They're empty suits. It's a TV show, and they're there as contestants. And if they don't like it, they can go, I don't know, they can go sell shoes somewhere. Or they can, who knows what the hell they want to do with their lives. But if they don't want to play according to the contract, get the hell out of Dodge. But I have already been disabused of watching your show. I'm already in the habit of not watching the NFL on Sunday and not watching the NFL on Monday or Thursday or any of the other damn games. They can go to hell. So this is the make or break season for you, NFL, and it appears on the face that at least at this point, you are continuing on the right track, that you want to slit your own throat, and I'm going to watch the blood rush. Because, let's see, if these NFL players aren't going to play for the NFL, I wonder what they're going to be doing. Let's see, are these bad boys going to be rocket scientists or nuclear physicists? I don't think so. Okay, one final good one. The DNC. The DNC chair, who almost was Keith Ellison, a Muslim. God, I wish that he would have gotten DNC chair. Oh, please. Next time it's up, give it to Keith Ellison, please. Or better yet, just make it give it to Alexandria OC. She's a socialist. She should be DNC chair after her run, Or maybe she can do both at once. She's a talented young gal. She's 28 years old. She can probably handle that. Anyway, Tom Perez, the DNC chair, has said that, speaking of which, Alexandria OC, Ocasio-Cortez, she's the future of our party. They don't, democratic, they want actual, honest-to-God socialism, it would appear. Or do they? Well, let's see if I can get the cut to play. Let's refresh it.
Now, something else
Here we
happened
go.
last week. There was a primary in several states, your state, home state of Maryland, and also up in New York, where the fourth most powerful Democrat in the United States Congress, Congressman Joe Crowley, was knocked out by a young woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 28 years old, never ran for office before. Big progressive, calls herself a Democratic socialist, actually, like Bernie Sanders did. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And in Maryland, Ben Jealous, another strong progressive, wins the Democratic nomination for governor. What's this tell you about where the Democratic Party's going today?
Well, Tom, take it. Boy, if that isn't a softball, I don't know what is. But hey, what's Tom gonna say?
My daughters, I have 3 kids, 2 of whom are daughters. One just graduated college, one is in college, and they were both texting me about their excitement over Alexandria because she represents the future of our party. She ran a spirited campaign. I have great respect for Joe Crowley.
There you go. She represents the future of our party, and that's all you need to know. Because what do you do like I said last week, what's the first rule of holes, Demorats? If you find that you're in a hole, you need to stop digging. Are they ceasing? Is there cessation of digging in their future? I'm not so sure. And then let's go back. Something kind of interesting happened yesterday. So perhaps it's time to talk about it and listen and talk about the various reactions that have occurred, why they've occurred, and what may be in the future for the situation. So there was a guy who sat in the D.C. District Court of Appeals, and a lot of Supreme Court jurists come out of the D.C. court there. And this guy named Brett Kavanaugh was just nominated by President Donald John Trump for filling the position recently vacated by Anthony Kennedy, who has retired. And the games have begun, and begun they have. They'd begun quite before President Trump, and I love saying those 2 words together, President Trump. The game started even before the selection. So from the WashingtonTimes.com, originally Democrats vow to vote no on Supreme Court nominee regardless of who Trump picks. Well, that shouldn't come as a shock to anybody, should it? And if I had a producer after I'd say they're going to vote no to anybody that Trump picks, if I had a producer after I said that, there would be... But sadly, I don't have a producer, so that's not what happened. In any event, continuing, some Demorats said they don't have to wait for President Trump to pick a Supreme Court nominee. They're voting no, regardless of who he names. Senator Bob Casey became the latest one, saying Monday that the entire process the president has followed was corrupt because he was working from a list he wrote with the help of the Conservative Heritage Foundation and Federalist Society. You know, those evil bastards and bastardettes that follow the Constitution and agree with the Bill of Rights, those folks. By the way, welcome to Mary Brockman and Whiskey Dale. Good to see you folks here in chat as well. I need to mind my manners. Senator Bob Casey became the latest one, saying Monday the entire process the president has followed was corrupt because he was working from that list. Any judge on this list is fruit of a corrupt process straight from the D.C. swamp. I guess I could play that sound cut, but I'm not going to. Other Democrats still salty over the GOP's treatment of one of President Obama's nominees in 2016, said they won't accept any nominee until after the presidential election. Leftist obstructionists, just as this guy, Leader McConnell, happened to say here.
Justice Kennedy's resignation letter had barely arrived in the president's hands before several of our Democratic colleagues began declaring their blanket opposition to anyone at all, anyone, that the president might name.
So that's completely correct. It doesn't matter. Maybe he could have pulled like Jesus. out of the pick. You know, I don't think it was one of his 25s, but had it been, nope. That dude is he's way too much into magic and way too much into religion. So no, we're not going to consider him as all. So yesterday, just as he promised and has been keeping his promises made during the presidential election, President Trump announced his SCOTUS selection. Brett Kavanaugh is Trump's pick for the Supreme Court. President Trump on Monday nominated Judge Brett M. Kavanaugh, a politically connected member of Washington's conservative legal establishment. Now stop. I'm reading this to you. This is from the New York Times. So now knowing the source, as I read, now you can understand why there are certain words and phrases that are inserted into this article. To fill Justice Anthony M. Kennedy's seat on the Supreme Court, setting up an epic confrontation, battle, and potentially cementing the court's rightward tilt for a generation. Stop. I submit it could be for 2 generations, particularly if, as I'm theorizing, and there was some date in July when I said, I think it was July 3rd, when I said something similar to mark this down, I think that President Trump is going to get a 3rd SCOTUS choice for nomination. I think there's going to be a 3rd vacancy coming up during just his 4 years. Mark my words, that I hope may come out to be true. The nomination of Judge Kavanaugh, he's 53, a federal appeals court judge, former aide to President George W. Bush, and one-time investigator of President Bill Clinton, was not a huge surprise given his conservative record, elite credentials, and deep ties among the Republican legal groups that have advanced conservatives for the federal bench. Well, okay, that was the New York Times. You can see clearly that slant bleeding through. And, of course, what then followed was what I call a cavalanche, a veritable cavalanche of objections commencing like a goose greasing the sluices after having had crab cakes and broccoli. So what do some of the other, because obviously anybody that Trump selects is going to be biased, right? And the people that others indicate may be on the left, like Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She really isn't a leftist, though, is she? I mean, she's never really said anything about that, about the Constitution.
And the next will be the drafting of a Constitution. Well, I cannot speak.
Now, by the way, she's talking to people in Egypt about their having to create a Constitution.
About what the Egyptian experience should be, because I'm operating under a rather old constitution. The United States, in comparison to Egypt, is a very new nation, and yet we have the oldest written constitution still in force in the world. I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a constitution in the year 2012. I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a constitution in the year 2012.
This is what she thinks of the Constitution.
I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a constitution in the year 2012.
She's tasked with enforcing the Constitution and making sure that the cases that come before her bench are vetted properly and accurately with precedent in consideration of the U.S. Constitution and the appropriate Bill of Rights. And she recommends to any and all that evil U.S. Constitution, that shouldn't be a blueprint for anybody else because it's too damn old. And I think you know why, don't you?
I might look at the Constitution of South Africa.
Right.
That was a deliberate...
Right, because South Africa is such an incredibly successful country.
...attempt to have a fundamental instrument of government that embraced basic human rights, had an independent judiciary.
Right, like we don't have an independent judiciary. Well, maybe what she means is there are 3 branches of government when in truth, maybe in her world, there ought to be only one. And of course, that would be the judicial branch.
It really is, I think, a great piece of work that was done.
Right.
Much more recently than the U.S. Constitution, Canada has a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It dates from 1982.
Right.
You would almost certainly look at the European Convention on Human Rights.
Right, that's what you need. As far as she's concerned, this ancient, doddering U.S. Constitution, it's not good for anything. I mean, you maybe, if you need to, you could take it out and paper your parakeet cage with it, wrap fish with it, because it's not a fluctuous and fluid document. And it goes into positive and negative rights. We're going to talk briefly about that when we come back. And for those people who have been sending me hundreds of thousands of cards and letters saying, hey, BZ, are you ever going to come up with a new promo for the break? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact. Heads up.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny, on shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
the
thingies. Those
what?
Things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
go. Against tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are porked.
Hello. I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires, due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network, to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And you are listening to the SHR Media Network. It's the BZ, the Bloviating Zeppelin, on Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. 2 miles, count them, 2. That way, west, from the veritable belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire left coast. That's Sacramento, California, the Bill Mill, and every once we get too close. We get absolutely too close, and that's why I have to tell you about what's happening, because everyone else in that area, they're all corrupt. They're all corrupted, all of them. I have to tell you one thing, though. Another thing. I talked about it last week, but I just have to say it again because I'm so happy. I'm so happy. The air conditioning in here works, and fuck, it works great. Man, I gotta tell you, I'm such a happy guy. Whiskey Dale said, I sure hope you're not downwind of San Francisco. Yeah, that's true. The closest I've been to San Francisco recently is when I went to go see Fleet Week in October of last year. A guy that has a big yacht invited me over there, and so we, trundled around in the waves and went and parked just off of Alcatraz and watched the Blue Angels fly over in the middle of the bobbing waters of the San Francisco Bay. That's about as close as I got to San Francisco, and that's about as close as I want to get to Sacramento, or San Francisco, rather, because California is a shithole, Sacramento is a shithole, and San Francisco is most def a shithole. I guess California is proud of that. Well, let's go back to the Constitution. Just played you a cut from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who thinks the U.S. Constitution is a piece of crap because it limits government. And government, in the eyes of leftists, should never be limited. Government needs to be able to suppress you and annoy you and regulate you as much as it possibly can. And so, we could have gotten another Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court nomination, but we don't. And she doesn't believe in the U.S. Constitution at all, and she wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So what did Bernie the socialist, what did he happen to think?
Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, I appreciate your time. Look, we understand the president made his choice. I mean, when you talk about just the logistics of getting someone there and informing them, making it at 3 o'clock Eastern is pretty darn late for a 9 p.m. announcement, but that's what we understand. Senator, is there anyone this president...
Okay, did you just hear that? That's the media. That's CNN pissed off that they had to stay up so late. Oh, no, 9 o'clock to hear of an announcement, a SCOTUS announcement. We have Betty by time.
Could realistically pick that would be acceptable to you?
Oh, there are many people he could realistically pick.
Leftist, socialist, leftist.
People who respected the rights of workers, people who respected women's...
When you hear this, I want you to tell me in unison, shout it out loud, near and far, what is he leaving out of this list?
Rights, people who are concerned about the environment and climate change, people who believed in justice. If President Trump were to nominate somebody who held those beliefs, of course I could support that person. Yep. Do I realistically think that that is going to be the nominee? No, I don't. As you know, Trump has indicated that he's working off a list of 25 right-wing legal people.
Extremists. Go ahead and say it, Bernie. Just say it. Extremists.
And that during the campaign, he said pretty publicly that his nominee would be somebody to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Yes,
if that is one of his nominees, no, I certainly will not support him or her.
All right, so...
Okay, stop. That's enough. That's all you need to know. That's funny. What did Neil Gorsuch say? Did he say anything like that? I don't seem to remember Neil Gorsuch saying anything like that. As a matter of fact, neither has Brett Kavanaugh, whom Trump selected. So in reaction prior to the announcement, Not once, this is the part, not once does socialist Bernie Sanders mention the importance of the U.S. Constitution or the Bill of Rights. He doesn't delineate positive versus negative rights or the reason the Constitution itself, which is, that's the reason the U.S. Supreme Court exists, because of the U.S. Constitution, and to interpret the Bill of Rights in each and every case that comes before them according to the fact pattern that is in each and every individual case. Separation of powers, the Founding Fathers, the fundamental reason for the creation of this nation in the first place. Not once did Bernie Sanders mention the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, which is why leftists are full of shit.
While President Trump weighs his Supreme Court options, America's left is already acting apocalyptic.
This is great. This is grand.
Take a look at this.
We first have to find ways to stop that vote from.
This is Michael Moore.
Find ways? What does that mean?
Well, I'll join 1 million other people surrounding the United States Capitol.
Instead of circling the Capitol with 1 million people, take the 1 million people to Maine and go to LL Bean and tell them in Maine, you need to leave Maine unless Susan Collins votes the right way. That's how you play hardball. You do it smart. You
Continue to listen to this.
go to Alaska. You say, you know what, all those Alaskan crews, we're going to start boycotting Alaskan cruises if your senator votes the right way.
But to go back where there has been plenty of historical precedent, increase the court, putting an additional justice on for every far-right justice that's approved under the kind of rules.
Again, it doesn't. The logic doesn't matter. What the court will be looking at, Susan, is precedent, and there is precedent.
One woman actually told me that she was an activist in the 60s and she had not been very active since then. And when she heard about Kennedy stepping down, she literally got physically ill.
There you go. That's what it takes. It takes a violent physical reaction. You want to hear some more? Yeah, okay. I want to hear some more reactions.
Keep in mind, the people you just saw don't even know who President Trump is going to nominate. Joining us now with a reaction is the author of the upcoming book, Why We Fight, Recovering America's Will to Win, Fox News National Security Strategy.
By the way, I loves me some Sebastian Gorka.
Just Sebastian Gorka, former Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich, and Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer. All right, guys, I want to reference that video that we just saw where Michael Moore is calling for 1 million people to surround the U.S. Capitol to prevent a Senate vote. And that's what it's for, to prevent the vote. And now they're talking about getting companies to move out of states if Susan Collins or...
Apparently, these dimwits forget that there are subterranean caverns and tunnels all through D.C., which is how a lot of these guys get to work into the Capitol. Shh, don't tell anyone.
Lisa Murkowski don't vote the way they want. But the most interesting, I thought, was Tom Rogers, who talked about increasing the number of justices on the court for every conservative.
Because we're not winning any other way, so the only other way to win is to cheat.
Justice who is put on. Is there, and I'm going to start with you, Ari, is there any kind of precedent to assume that if a conservative justice dies, that only a conservative can replace him, or if a swing justice retires, that we've got to put a swing person in there?
You know, quite frankly, I don't give one rat's fuck about Ari Fleischer, so we're going to go on to, let's see. Here's another cut. This is kind of interesting too.
Hearings. But obviously, before we get to all of this, we have to see the vote. Obviously, the confirmation hearings and then the vote. And one thing I just wanted to throw in here is there's been
this is CNN also
a lot of discussion about the reality of the razor-thin majority that the Republicans have in the Senate. They basically have one vote, and which means one to spare.
Are you sure?
And they have to rely, or they hope to rely on red state Democrats to give them a little bit of comfort with their margin. I've been talking to sources tonight who say with this pick, it is going to be harder for red state Democrats in really tough re-election battles to vote against him. Not impossible, but a lot harder. And remember, the three Democrats we're talking about who voted for Gorsuch a couple of last year were Joe Donnelly, Joe Manchin, and
so here's what the DNC is doing to the people in these districts. What they're saying is, you know what, you need to vote against Kavanaugh or anybody that Trump put up. And if you get voted out of your seat, who the hell cares? You are going to be the sacrificial lamb. We feel so strongly about this that, like I used to say to my trainees, if it is politically or fiscally expedient, you will be sacrificed. So there are 4 or 5 people, Democrats, whose jobs in the future, their re-elections, the DNC and the Democrats, they don't mind sacrificing some of their own. And that's the bottom line out of that. So this is what Kavanaugh had to say. This is a terrible man. Listen to him. Listen to how terrible he is and the horrible racist things that he spews.
Mr. President, thank you. Throughout this
God, that was racist in and of itself. Come on.
Process, I've witnessed firsthand your appreciation for the vital role of the American judiciary. No president has ever consulted more widely or talked with more people from more backgrounds.
You know, the innuendo is that that's homophobic. That's a homophobic statement as well.
To seek input about a Supreme Court nomination.
Input, that's homophobic. Do you see how he sexualized that phrase?
Mr. President, I am grateful to you, and I'm humbled by your confidence in me. Thank you. 30 years ago, President Reagan nominated Anthony Kennedy to the Supreme Court. The framers established that the Constitution is designed to secure the blessings of liberty. Justice Kennedy devoted his career to securing liberty. I am deeply honored to be nominated to fill his seat on the Supreme Court.
Here's the stuff that offends, though. Let's go right into the offensive words. The reason he's evil is because Brett Kavanaugh says this: judges must interpret, not make law. Interpret statutes and Constitution as written. After the announcement of his nomination to the Supreme Court, Judge Brett Kavanaugh stated, this is a direct statement from him, a judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent. See, to leftists, that's anathema. That's just by saying that you want to support a document written by elderly white guys makes you every ist and ob you can possibly think of in the LDAM universe, leftist Democrats in the American media maggots. He later added, and this is another quote, my judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent, must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history, tradition, and precedent. For the past 11 years, I've taught hundreds of students, primarily at Harvard Law School. I teach that the Constitution's separation of powers protects individual liberty, and I remain grateful to the dean who hired me, Justice Elena Kagan. As a judge, I hire 4 law clerks each year. I look for the best. My law clerks come from diverse backgrounds and points of view. I am proud that a majority of my law clerks have been women. He also concluded, I will tell each senator that I revere the Constitution. I believe that an independent judiciary is the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. As far as the LDAM is concerned, on every damn level. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Everything he says is wrong. I believe that an independent judiciary is the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. If confirmed by the Senate, I will keep an open mind in every case, and I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law. Wrong, wrong, wrong. He couldn't be more wrong.
Developing tonight, the Pentagon pushing back on claims that it's purging immigrant recruits from the U.S. Armed Forces after what it calls a misleading report by the Association.
Oop, wrong one. Didn't want to go there. That's another story. Oh, my God. Talk about that. Just very briefly, the Associated Press lied its asses off about saying that the U.S. military is kicking immigrants to the curb. But again, what else? What else would you expect? Now, this article, by the way, this is also from Washington. and here's where the rubber starts to hit the road. Susan Collins, Joe Manchin, other swing votes open. Oh, now it's the time to get the sweats. It's like coming off of heroin. You get the sweats. You can't sleep. You begin to vibrate like crazy. Susan Collins, Joe Manchin, other swing votes open to Trump's Supreme Court pick. Ooh, the senators who will most likely decide Judge Brett Kavanaugh's fate were studiously non-committal Monday, promising a thorough and fair vetting before they say whether they'll support his nomination to the Supreme Court. Only a few Republicans and a handful of Democrats are likely in play in the closely divided Senate. And depending on absences, a single Republican defection could sink the pick, while the support of one or two Democrats could guarantee Judge Kavanaugh and will be in the high court by the time the next term begins in October. Senator Susan Collins, the Republican that Democrats say is most likely to sway, said Judge Kavanaugh brought impressive credentials and extensive experience, but she wouldn't go any further. So you got to ask yourself this. How many Democrats are going to line up behind Brett Kavanaugh simply because he's right? I mean, my God, he's as offensive as fresh milk or blue sky. You see, a bit of the bottom line is this, and that's why, damn me for asking salient and pertinent questions. Judge Kavanaugh, all right, was already confirmed by the U.S. Senate back in 2006 by a positive margin of 21 senators with a tally of 57 to 36. He has been repeatedly been upheld by SCOTUS 10 or 11 times, depending on who you talk to. He's heard over 300 cases. So since 2006, and the Senate's majority approval of him, knowing full well this is who the man is, he's a conservative, he was okay then, you got to ask yourself the fundamental question. What has changed since then? Only one thing. President Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. So I found this other article, and I got about another 7 minutes, and I think I'll be able to do it through this. This is an interesting article by Ian Henderson. And at the end of the show, when I post this show, I might put a link up to this article. And it's the title of the article is "The Democratic Party is Killing Itself. What does America's political climate bode for us in the next 25 to 50 years? What if I told you the Democratic Party will fracture into multiple parties and the Republican Party will grow stronger? And what if I said changing demographics and the normalization of identity politics would be the reason? The Democratic Party has redoubled its embrace of identity politics, whether it be Mexican-American, African-American, Chinese-American, Muslim-American, or any of the 24 hyphenated American groups out there. These ethno-religious cultural groups have, by and large, used the Democratic Party to further their group interests. Why wouldn't they? Human beings are tribal creatures and more often than not flock to those who act like them, speak like them, pray like them, and, look like them. As America's non-Hispanic white population shrinks due to the influx of non-European immigration and low white birth rates, cultural enclaves have begun to form all over the nation. Starting in the late 1960s and accelerating over the past decade, the Democratic Party has abandoned its traditional base of working-class white voters to embrace minority immigrant groups. Although this has boded well for them in places like California, it won't last. Number one, growing Republican support. Working-class white voters feel abandoned by the Democratic Party. The party went from a platform of being center-left economically and socially, culturally conservative to a platform that is far to the left economically and socially, culturally degenerate. Consider how the South went from blue to red in the 1990s as Southern evangelicals embraced the Republican Party platform. Something similar is happening in the Rust Belt. Compare Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin in the 2008 and 2012 elections with the outcome in 2016. All three blue wall states voted for Trump, shocking the nation. But was it really so astounding? Those states have been electing Republicans to the U.S. Senate, Pennsylvania's Pat Toomey and Wisconsin's Ron Johnson. The House, 9 out of 15 seats in Michigan, 5 out of 8 seats in Wisconsin, and 10 out of 18 seats in Pennsylvania are Republican. State legislators, Republican majorities in all three states, and to their governor's office, Michigan's Rick Snyder and Wisconsin's Scott Walker. The red shift didn't occur because people suddenly became Koch brothers, Koch brother loving investors who want to grow their portfolio and bring in cheap foreign labor. It's because the Republican Party is changing to reflect the interests of the white working class in these states. This solidified after Trump's election in 2016. And why not? As the Democrats' political rhetoric and policy proposals have become more explicitly anti-white and socialistic, naturally white voters will look for a political home elsewhere. Number 2, abandoning the Democrats. Looking at the past 2 decades of presidential elections, the white share of the popular vote has decreased for Democratic candidates, with the exception of Barack Obama's 2008 bid. Bill Clinton won 49% of the white vote in 1996. Al Gore won 43% in 2000. John Kerry won 41% in 2004. Barack Obama won 43% in 2008 and 39% in 2012, while Hillary Clinton won 39% in 2016. So increasingly so, more whites are realizing that the economically center-left and socially, culturally conservative party of Franklin D. Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy, that no longer exists. The old Democratic Party was a pro-labor, pro-union party. Today, the Democratic Party is the party of open borders, multiculturalism, and environmentalism, positions that reduce wages, divide communities, and undermine economic prosperity. The traditional base of white working-class Democrats either cannot relate to or are opposed to these policies, and as a result have been leaving the Democratic Party in droves. And that doesn't even address, if I get the time, I've got a great post coming. Walk away. If you don't know what walk away is, I'm going to talk about it at length, that hashtag. It's a burgeoning, developing, massive new theme. The Democrats have cynically embraced Hispanics, blacks, Asians, Muslims, and the LGBT community, feminism, and many other groups in an attempt to divide and conquer the electorate. Even though most of these groups have conflicting interests, that in and of itself will be the downfall of the Democratic Party. Number 3, what about the black community? The other major demographic group left sidelined by Democrats' suicidal embrace of identity politics is black Americans. Blacks shifted en masse to the Democrats once its party committed to segregation and Jim Crow after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, despite the fact that more Republicans than Democrats ultimately voted for the bill. But black votes are becoming less relevant to Democratic victory as the Hispanic population has expanded. When Democrats champion the rights of illegal aliens and encourage the importation of cheap labor, who suffers the most? Blacks. The fact is, the desire for more Democratic votes through mass immigration and free health care for foreign nationals have made blacks, 12.7% of the nation's population, less significant to Democrats' electoral fortunes. Bingo. Bingo. Don't think the black community hasn't noticed the problem with illegal immigration. A Harvard-Harris poll earlier this year found 85% of black Americans wanted a reduction in immigration levels to 1 million or fewer. Sooner or later, blacks will leave the Democrats. Now, whether they join with the GOP or form a party based on racial identity, that's an open question. Both could very well happen. It's worth noting how a handful of influential African Americans lately have come out in support of what might be best described as conservative values in general, and President Trump in particular. Kanye West springs immediately to mind. So do Dennis Rodman, Mike Tyson, Diamond and Silk, Candace Owens, and Ben Carson. In fact, since Kanye West's embrace of Trump, support for the president among black men has doubled. What's more, President Trump has been wooing the black community by making a number of pardons as well as meeting publicly with the presidents of historically black colleges. As a result, of their alienation from the Democratic Party, some within the black community might attempt to revive some version of the Black Panther Party to represent black interests, while others, following the celebrity's lead, will find a new home in the Republican Party. Number 4, development of minority interest parties. But why stop with the Black Nationalist Party, as many minority constituencies grow in size thanks in part to the archaic immigration system and high birth rates among Hispanics? They'll demand special favors within the Democratic coalition too, and eventually those interests will come into conflict over irreconcilable cultural differences, the result of identity politics. When that happens, the Democrats could be likely fractured into ethno-religious cultural interest parties. It's already happened in Europe and in certain Asian countries with diverse ethnic populations. The Denk Party in the Netherlands, for example, is an exclusively Turkish minority party with direct ties to the Turkish government. The Malaysian Chinese Association and the Malaysian Indian Congress represent Chinese and Indian communities in Malaysia. What do the establishment of these ethno-religious cultural parties tell us about these nations? It tells us there are sizable chunks of the population that have divided loyalties to the nation in which they reside and to the nation of their ancestors. As immigrant groups grow in size in the United States, particularly the Chinese, Indian, and Mexican populations, the Democratic Party will begin to collapse. The party's attempt to be a catch-all big tent progressive coalition will be its downfall. In its arrogance, by the way, I'm going to go through the break until I finish the article. That's how I roll. In its arrogance, the Democratic Party's leadership has failed to see that promoting a diverse and multicultural society to people who don't believe in multiculturalism or diversity is utterly suicidal. Chinese, Arabs, Indians, and Mexicans are deeply conservative, identitarian groups that as a whole have no interest in compromising their cultures, traditions, or ways of life. Throwing them all together and expecting any kind of a kumbaya moment is foolish and betrays a profound misunderstanding of these cultures. It's quite ironic how the Democratic Party, in all of its arrogance, changed its platform in an attempt to gain more power, only for it to be their undoing. Oh my God, I think I've pretty much made it. I made it for the break. Okay. Now, when I come back in hour 2, blah, 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 and the creek don't rise. Theoretically, we should be listening to KAISER SHUFF for the second hour. I got a couple of things that I'd like to talk to him, and we're also going to address that absolutely epic show that occurred last Saturday. I'm not kidding. Myself and Alan Thomas and KAISER SHUFF were on KAISER's show for 5 hours.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny, on shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
what?
thingies.
The
Those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
Against
go.
tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are porked.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Wow. We are already into the second hour. And as a matter of fact, the individual who said he was going to call is calling right now. Now, in the first hour, we talked about Brett Kavanaugh, about SCOTUS. I had a bunch of happy stories. I had a ton of happy stories. And the second hour, as promised, we're going to talk to KAISER SHUFF. KAISER, chat at me, sir, to make sure I got your mic levels okay.
Hey, how's it going there, brother?
Excellent, excellent. Okay, good. Good levels, and I can hear you great. This is wonderful. God, KAISER, I got to tell you.
That's what I'm saying, the miracle of the internet.
Oh, God, it's great. And number one, I'm happy as hell to see you on the show. Number two, it's like the congruence and the confluence of everything being right in my life right now. The phone works. The air conditioning in here is great. We're going to talk to you for the rest of the hour. But first, before we go there, for people that may not know you, can you give me about a couple minute summary of who you are and particularly what you've done, because your specialty is the U.S. military.
Well, my specialty is police and military.
Okay.
I was a military policeman. I started out at 17 in the Army, United States Army, when there was still a wall up, folks. Then I went on into the Marine Corps as a 5811. 95 Bravo is what it was called. Now it's 31 Bravo in the Army. And I was a 5811 military policeman in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And I left that, went out. I was a union iron worker, put myself through college, got on with my first federal agency, which I never talk about, and everybody knows this and why. And I stayed in the National Guard while I was a union iron worker, getting a couple of different MOSs. Built my resume up. After that, I went to work for DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, as an investigator.
Okay.
And then after that, I went into Immigration and Customs and worked out at the Detroit field office. And I'm not from Detroit. You know where I'm from.
Right.
And then after that, I started contracting in 05, and January of 05. And that's what I do to this day. I'm a security contractor in places you don't want to visit. And that's it.
Let me just say, because you named all of the places that you've been on the last time we had you on the show. And literally, you have been all over the damn world. And when you say you're a security contractor, you do a lot of stuff that obviously, because of the nature of the business, you can't talk about. But the reason that I value you is because, number one, you were a cool cat in and of itself, even if, depending upon what you actually did, you're just a cool dude yourself. But also, you have insight into the military and the military mind, the military process, the military designations. I can tell you all about the law enforcement stuff. You can tell me about some law enforcement stuff, but your forte really is the military. So that's why I value you, because, number one, you're a cool dude. You're a great brother, and I really appreciate that. And number two, like with a capital R, capital D, you are the real deal. So that's why I also really enjoy having you on the air. Now, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to talk about something that we did with another individual last Saturday. And people, I shit you not, KAISER, SHUFF, and BZ, and Alan Thomas, who is a paranormal investigator. I've had him on the show before. And KAISER has also had Alan on his show before. Oh, stop. Let me stop right there. KAISER, tell people where you can be found, where your show can be found, and some of the social media sites that you have. Because if I want to make people aware of, you have your own show and you do your own stuff. So tell people where you can be found.
Well, I just have my YouTube page, and that's all small letters, sword point 9, and the numeral 9.
Okay.
And you'll see my page.
Okay. And again, you have a ton of people that are of like mind, like you. That is to say, people that are of a military nature, that have done a lot of things involving the military. And I think that's why, folks, if you want to listen to another great viewpoint with a military interest and centered around military topics, items, etc., Sword Point 9 on YouTube, that's where you need to go. So now, having said that, let me back up a little bit. KAISER is going to be taking a job and going somewhere, and so he wanted to make sure that the three of us, himself, KAISER SHUFF, and Alan Thomas, got on a show, and we just went and ranted and bullshitted about stuff, and we thought, okay.
And it was epic.
Oh, we thought, okay, well, we're going to be on for an hour or so, or maybe 2 hours or something like that. Well, the first hour was a rock and roll riot, because essentially that was us trying to get together and try to figure out how to conference call all of this stuff. Well, once we figured out the technology, and we were able to do that, literally, folks, I am not kidding, it became a 5-hour show. We went everywhere with everyone, with everything, in every topic you can possibly think of under the moon. And the show went on. Here's how long. This is great. This is how long the show went on. Alan Thomas was starting to get looks from his wife, which translated to, Alan, you've been on the air too long. Come and do something else. And Alan basically said, yeah, the wife wanted me to go shopping. So Alan left for a while. Now, KAISER and I were still talking. We talked for so long that Alan Thomas came back from shopping with his wife and then joined back in the conversation. And then it was a rock and roll riot from there. Now, the other thing I have to tell you is that it was an adult show. Perhaps maybe adult beverages were involved in some fashion. I can only confirm this from my end because, as people know, I am wont to imbibe Kettle One vodka every now and then. but only little bitty weeny sips, I should tell you. But the show just became more rollicking and riotous. To my knowledge, I do not know of anybody recently that's completed a 5-hour show. And like you say, it was absolutely epic. What I'd like to do, Kaiser, is I'd like to start with some politics and then maybe run it up into some local and then some more global geopolitics for the rest of the hour. But the first thing I want to start is this. In terms of politics, we all know that yesterday, we all know that yesterday
was wild, man.
Oh.
I was listening to you completely, and I was answering you.
Yeah.
And you couldn't hear me. And then I get this thing saying something on Facebook saying, "Are you connected still?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Okay.
And then it disconnected me. So anyways, yeah, no, it was wild and rollicking. And yes, adult beverages was being imbibed, but it was also 5 in the flipping morning, 5 something in the flipping morning. And I was tired, but the alcohol was taking effect. But we had an unfettered, and I feel bad because I got so I guess tired and loopy that I decided to play. What song did I play? You suggested it.
You played Leonard Skinner's Simple Man. That was it. Leonard Skinner's Simple Man.
And they pulled my damn show down, but I put it in private real quick, and I'm trying to figure out how to edit that out so we can actually have that show forever, because it was that good, folks.
Oh, it was.
It was. Whenever we talk, all of us, it's magic.
It was pretty amazing. And so we were coming from all sorts of different perspectives. We were coming from politics. We were coming from the military. We were talking geopolitics. We were talking some of the paranormal stuff. It was a cornucopia of great buttery political and everything else kind of goodness. So once you decide how you're going to cut that thing, and if you bring it back up edited, and I'm sure YouTube will go, okay, all right, you can have it back once you take that song out. If I can find out what that URL is, I'm going to put the URL up because it's just.
I want to give you. I actually want to send you
time.
The uncut thing, and you can figure out where to cut it. I'll talk to you about it offline.
Okay.
But if you can figure out where to cut it, if you can do it before me, I'm good with it.
Okay. All right.
I'll let you take it. Biff, because that was. Honestly, I know you don't like to stay up that late. I don't, and neither does Alan. But it was so funny, like you said.
We just kept
Alan
going.
and his wife left, and then Alan's like, "You guys are still on. This is epic." And it was. We had like 50-some views in like 8 hours.
It was funny. It really was funny. Hey, thanks again to everybody in chat. Whiskey Dale is in chat. Kaiser's in chat. Mary's in chat. Boyd McPhail is in chat. Simone is in chat. Beantown Billy's in chat. And GJ Maple is in chat. Great to have you all here. Thank you very, very much for being here tonight. Kaiser, what I want to do is I want to start, like I say, with politics and then maybe expand things to the rest of the United States and maybe to some of the things that are occurring throughout the world. The first thing of great note was the fact that Brett Kavanaugh was named by Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, as a potential or as a nominee for SCOTUS. And then there was the reaction on the left, and as far as they're concerned, it was Armageddon, the sky is falling, and there's a meteor coming to strike the planet right now, even as we talk. So, do you have any thoughts, one way or the other, about Brett Kavanaugh, and for that matter, the entire process about selection and about SCOTUS and about the leftists?
Right. What I'll say is that's all problem, solution, reaction. I'm not really worried about that. But what I'll say is he's a good pick for DJT at this point. when the old one that they have to pump baby blood in, when she finally dies, that's when I believe the female that has, 7 kids? I can't think of her name right now. I think
are you talking about?
will bring her in.
Oh, Amy Coney Barrett. She was the one that already got appended. She got appointed to the 7th, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And I believe she will be brought in when Grandma Caligula dies.
Now, that's kind of an interesting point. Here's another point. Here's an article from the Washington Times, and apparently it's an article that Chuck Schumer indicates, and he says now the Democrats won't boycott Kavanaugh hearings and votes. Top Democratic Senator Charles Schumer shot down suggestions Tuesday that his party would boycott committee meetings or Senate floor action to try to derail President Trump's Supreme Court pick. Liberal activists have demanded Mr. Schumer use every tool at his disposal to try to thwart the elevation of Judge Kavanaugh to the high court, including parliamentary delays. Schumer, though, said that there aren't a lot of good tools left to the minority party to delay action now that both parties have curtailed the filibuster. Well, gee, I wonder how that started and how that ended. Imagine that, Harry Reid. And he said boycotting the committee or floor would just leave Republicans more space to get their way. If we did, they could unanimously consent to all kinds of things, the New York Democrats said. And he said Democrats are confident they can defeat Judge Kavanaugh on substantive issues by arguing to Americans that abortion rights will be limited and the remaining parts of Obamacare could be struck down should the high court tilt to the right. And that's no guarantee.
Yeah.
That's no guarantee.
Yeah.
You know, look at all the other judges that, for example, John Roberts came out with that. We conservatives thought that John Roberts was kind of a conservative guy, and then he pulls this decision out of his butt with regard to Obamacare. So there, just like anybody else, there is no guarantee. Kaiser, can you tell me if there's a guarantee that anybody that's nominated to SCOTUS is going to stay on a strict path that people think that they got nominated for? I don't think that happens.
No, it doesn't happen. And honestly, with Kavanaugh, it would never happen. He's a strict constructionist. And I've also heard this fraudulent thing where they're saying, if Trump gets impeached or, we're going to do something, he will listen to his master. No, Kavanaugh is a free-thinking human being.
Yes, he is.
And honestly, I think he's a just man. And I'm not carrying water for Trump, so don't think I am. I just think that we're going to see a reshaping of the court, and I believe this is why the libs are going. I hate to even say liberal, because that's the progressive wing of the party and the Marxists and cultural Marxists and the socialist wing of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Ocasio being one of them, out of whatever it is in New York, whatever borough she's in.
Right.
What I see is they are afraid that they will lose control of the courts because that's the only way they can push their fucking agenda.
Right.
And that's my opinion.
Yep.
And I am the foremost expert on my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's honesty and clarity like I never value it before. Now, having that been said, Mitch McConnell, who happens to be the Senate Majority Leader, spoke on the floor of the Senate, I think, Monday, talking about the Democrat opposition to Trump's appointment. And he made some interesting issues. He pointed out some various issues that I just talked about, and that's this. He said back in 1975, they assailed the leftists, assailed the nomination of John Paul Stevens. They said he lacked impartiality and opposed women's rights. So these far left groups have been at the same scare tactics, he said, for over 40 years. The far left rhetoric comes out every single time. And what he says essentially is that, you know what? The apocalypse that they keep saying is going to come, it never really arrives. It never really gets
minorities,
there.
dissenters, and other disadvantaged groups. That was about Justice Souter. And back in 1975, they assailed the nomination.
What's that, Kaiser?
I was just going to say, I didn't know you were playing something, man. I'll shut my mouth.
Okay.
So
Hey, if you want to interject,
I'll say it after.
if you want to interject, just say, "Hey, stop a second. I'd like to say something."
John Paul Stevens. They said he lacked impartiality and opposed women's rights. That's what they said about John Paul Stevens. So these far-left groups have been at these same scare tactics, Mr. President, for over 40 years. The consistency is really quite amazing. Decade after decade, nominee after nominee. The far left script hardly changes at all. Anyone and everyone a Republican president nominates to the Supreme Court is some kind of threat to the Republic, according to the hysterical press releases that inevitably follow. No matter their qualifications.
Okay, go ahead, Kaiser.
It's always got to be problem, solution, reaction. That is all they have. And honestly, look, people forget. Anita Hill, there's a lot of things people forget because they don't have the institutional mind to remember.
Yeah,
and that's not a dig on people, but when Anita Hill made the complete fraudulent charge of Justice Clarence Thomas putting a pubic hair on her Coke, that was a high-tech lynching of him.
That's exactly what he
by
said.
The left.
That's precisely how he phrased it. That it was a high-tech lynching, and he'd had enough of it.
Right. All I will tell you is, folks, this same shit has been happening, and I can slow down my language if you want, BZ, where I'm not going to be so spicy, but,
hey, it's late night.
I only eat filthy olives. But what I'm saying about this that really disturbs me is that in my young life, and I'm going to be, well, you know how old I am.
I do. You're
so I guess
a
I'm
kid.
not young.
You're a kid. Come on.
Yeah, I'm a kid to you. I love you, bro. But the thing about it is, I remember this stuff in my life, and it's always about my abortion, my racism. I remember when they were calling Justice Thomas a racist.
Yes.
Yes. Everything in their playbook is not new. Everybody's a fascist. I remember at 17 as a military policeman, I remember people, and dude, I listened to punk rock. And one of my favorite songs, I'll tell you it after I tell the story, they'd always be like, "You fascist pig." And there was a song, I can't remember the band's name, but it said, "I will be a fascist pig." That was like my favorite song because all these fuckers were calling me it. And I just didn't give a shit. And I don't give a shit now. Call me a fascist. Call me a Nazi. I don't care. This is what I think the liberals fail to realize, is that they have used and worn out those words so badly that they are now irrelevant. That's my opinion.
Boy, is that ever true. Well, McConnell continues.
No matter their record, no matter their reputation, it's the same hyperbole, the same accusations, the same old story. Tonight, President Trump will announce his nominee to fill the current Supreme Court vacancy. We don't know who he will name, but we already know exactly what unfair tactics the nominee will face. They won't be new, and they won't be warranted.
That's exactly what you just got through saying. They've all been doing this again and again and again. It's the same old song. Yep. It's the same old show.
We can expect to hear how they'll destroy equal rights or demolish American health care or ruin our country in some other fictional way. Justice Kennedy's resignation letter had barely arrived in the president's hands before several of our Democratic colleagues began declaring their blanket opposition to anyone at all, anyone, that the president might name. One Democratic senator stated she would resist any attempt to confirm any nominee this year, quote, "It doesn't matter who he's putting forward."
And yet, Kennedy had voted with the liberals, the Democrats, quite a few times.
Yes, he had.
So
swing vote means he goes both ways.
And Kavanaugh is one of his interns, one of his people who was.
That's right. He used to clerk for him.
Justice stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Folks, we're going to go on a break. We're going to come right back. Kaiser will take us right up to the end of the show. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Network. We are listening to Kaiser Schuff. He'll be back, and I'll be back. Don't go nowhere, pretty please.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
what?
thingies.
The
those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
go. Against tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are porked.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the final 25 minutes. You've been listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, 2 miles from the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the capital, Sacramento, the capital of California, where even now, late at night, you can smell the wafting evil vapors of hemlock, brimstone, sulfur. The devil himself, it's heard, walks the halls of the capital, Sacramento, Fornicalia. We've been talking to KAISER SHUFF, and KAISER, welcome back to you, sir.
How you doing, brother? Hey, no, I wanted to thank all of you on SHR Media. Since I still have my computer up, because we're having some storms where I live.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to say thank you guys, and I'm also mirroring you guys on my channel.
Oh, okay, cool.
And that way, it's going out, and it's not going to be as long as the other night, but I think it's going to be as eventful. Look, all you guys, out there, what is the best pickup line? I know that's how I got my wife. What's the best pickup than putting a pubic hair on her Coke can? Oh, I guess nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what was so ridiculous with the Anita Hill thing, but this is the level. Don't think you're not going to see it. And I'm sure they're going to say that Judge Kavanaugh, he grabbed his daughters just a little too tight. He touched their shoulders just a little too wrongly. I'm telling you, they're going to make this guy out to be the Antichrist. And if you don't believe that, you better start realizing that these people are cultural Marxists. They're evil to the core, and they don't care. Because what's always been, and this being from a former Marxist, which is me, this being from a former Marxist guy, reading Das Kapital, you know, all this stuff is just do it. It matters not how, but get it done. And it doesn't matter what you lay in wake or what honor you lose. And I had to learn through many mentors, not many. My first mentor actually woke me up quick, but I didn't get sloped for many more years. But the thing is this is how they believe, by any means necessary. And it doesn't matter who they leave in ashes in their wake. And that's really how they feel.
Now that's...
And I'm glad Kavanaugh and his family, I respect him. I love him. I want success. I believe we're going to have success. But, folks, you're going to hear all manner of things said about this poor, gentle man. And it's just a fact. I'm sorry to say it.
Here's another example that I should point out. Jim Jordan has also been subject to attack recently, and that's because he had started making noises like when Paul Ryan leaves, he wants to be Speaker of the House.
I know about this, and we will talk about it.
And so there have been all sorts of attacks on Jim Jordan from apparently something that he may or may not have known 20 years ago. And again, it's like the the timing.
I know for a fact he did not know, and we will talk about this.
Okay. Well, all right, then there's a feather in the cap of Jim Jordan for that, as a matter of fact. But as you so well pointed out earlier, it's the same thing. I mean, that's where the term borked came from. Judge Robert Bork was up for confirmation, and it was an all-out assault on him to the point where he could not be appointed, and that's where borked. And apparently, this is so critical as far as the Democrats, the LDAM, are concerned. They're going to do their level best to make sure that they bork Kavanaugh, and they're going to make sure that they do their level best to bork Jordan and anyone else who is a conservative or a libertarian, little L, or big L, or anybody that happens to be a Republican. I'm going to back up a little bit, and I don't have the cut. I looked for it, and I heard it, and I have not been able to find the cut because I'm not a member of this particular facility that gives you all sorts of historical audio cuts. It's a lot of damn money. But in any event, back when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was confirmed, when she was being spoken to,
Evil bitch.
And Orrin Hatch happened to be addressing her. This much I do remember. And one of the things that he was attempting to get out of her was, how do you think that you're going to rule on certain issues? We want to know, as the Senate, how you're going to view certain issues. And she quite frankly stood up. She didn't stand up, I'm sorry. She quite frankly put her foot down and said, I'm not going to hypothesize on scenarios where I don't have a specific case with particulars involving individuals in front of my hands. I'm not going to hypothesize about cases because that's not what I do. I wouldn't do it otherwise, and I'm not going to do it here. So she essentially put her foot down and said, all these various questions that you're about to ask me, whether I believe in this, what's my opinion on that? I am not going to answer any of those questions because I only act with the cases that are brought to me specifically involving specific events. And that is that is entirely acceptable and proper for her to have said that. But now if Kavanaugh... As
long as they're Democrat.
Well, yes. But if Kavanaugh were to attempt to say something like that, can you imagine the outcry, the hue and cry that would have occurred had Gorsuch, for example, come up with something like that? But it's okay. And again, it's the massive double standard between leftists, the LDAM, and Republicans, conservatives, etc. It's okay for Ruth Bader Ginsburg to say something like that, but it's not okay for Republicans or conservatives to say that. Now, I've got an audio cut coming up here that I want you to hear. This is Senator Richard Blumenthal. He's a Democrat out of, where is he from?
I know where he's from.
He's from Connecticut.
New Hampshire or
he's from Connecticut. And so what he's going to say is he wants Kavanaugh just to recuse himself, period. End of statement.
I'm a no on this nominee. My colleagues should be a no on this nominee unless Judge Kavanaugh specifically commits that he will recuse himself on any issues that involve President Trump's personal financial dealings or the special counsel. He will be the swing vote. Judge Kavanaugh, if he is a justice, would be the swing vote in deciding whether he can pardon himself. Get out of jail free pass. That's the accountability that will be lost if Judge Kavanaugh is confirmed. Likewise, whether he can be called before a grand jury, whether he can be indicted while he's still president, whether he will be stopped from violating the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution, as he's doing every day, by taking foreign gifts and payments.
Number one, bullshit. That hasn't occurred. And if it has, prove it. Prove it. All you have to do is prove it. But
they don't have to prove it. The media is carrying their water for them.
They are absolutely.
And honestly, his comments need no more airing than a flatulent sound coming out of orifice from my body or yours.
Yeah.
I mean this.
No.
This is something that this is what they're trying to pull.
No, that's true.
And honestly, it really hurts in a way that, on an honest level, that the American people will be suckered. Some of them will be suckered by this. But when you see the hashtag walk away, you see all these different things happening.
No, I'm going to go into that.
No, they're in problems.
Yes.
They're in some issues.
They're in some very, very dire straits right now.
They are, because they've used racial politics for so long. There's a backlash, and it's not just a white supremacist. No, it's also the blacks, the Hispanics that actually are citizens or are working to become citizens. And that's the whole thing. Divide and conquer. I think everybody's woke up to this.
Yes.
And that's the thing that is more important to focus on. But I don't even care about him. I don't care about that. My big thing, to me, is that at one time, look, I'm a member of the VFW and the American Legion. Nobody can dispute this. I'm also a contractor. I go overseas, and I'm about to leave again. And I want to do another show with BZ, and I'd love to do another one with Alan. Hopefully not 5 hours.
No.
God bless. But BZ, you did give the best, and brother, if I can't retrieve this, if you can do this on your show, it'd be epic. You did the best reading I've ever heard by Rudyard Kipling's If. So if you could take us out on that, I would love to have you say that. I was in tears. And I don't mean that in tears of laughter. I mean in tears of emotion. That was, and I know you told me afterwards that you felt it too.
It was kind of tough to get through.
poem.
It was kind of tough to get through, I will admit. But,
yeah,
5 hours, I don't think we're going to be doing that again.
Yeah,
in the
no, I don't want to do
distant
that
future.
Unless I'm in Afghanistan and getting shot at and stuff, and you guys can laugh at me while that shit happens.
Okay.
So, or wherever I'm going.
Here's a story that I have not seen covered, but I haven't gone out to Drudge Report recently. I've been preparing for the show for the past almost 2 hours now. So I haven't been on the media for about 2 hours, but just before I got in the car to come here, a story came out, and I would like your input on this because I think this bespeaks volumes about the government's relationship with the citizens. And that's this. Now, Peter Strzok, the incredibly biased and political FBI agent, came to testify last week in front of Congress. And that was behind closed doors. This week, allegedly, he said that he will testify in front of everyone, not behind closed doors. However, just before I got into the car to come here tonight, Lisa Page, his lover, by the way, just thought I'd throw that out there, an FBI attorney, the last statement from her was she will come and testify behind closed doors, and they're going to attempt to get her to testify in the open. However, as I was getting in the automobile, I heard a news story, if anyone can confirm or not, that now her attorney, the attorney for Lisa Page, says she is not going to comply with the congressional subpoena tomorrow. She is not going to appear. So again, now if she's not going to do that, what makes anyone think that Peter Strzok is going to testify in front of Congress tomorrow or the day after this attorney has already set this precedent? Meaning, and I'll translate, that's this. those particular people of the FBI and the members, the high-level members of the FBI, and let's throw the DOJ and almost any other alphabet agency that operated under the Obama administration, they believe that they are completely unaccountable and answerable to no one. This is the high, hard fuck you to anybody and everyone who wants to find out the truth about what I believe is truly an attempted soft coup against the government of the United States. It was a soft coup against a presidential nominee. It was a soft coup against a president-elect. And it is a continuing soft coup against a sitting president of the United States. And with each additional day we find out it's like the cat box is so big, all these corrupt cats can't cover their shit. And so they've got to have somebody else cover it for them.
And that's why Comey, a lot of people forget this. When Trump pardoned the folks today, remember who they were. When he pardoned them, the fact remains that he was slapping down BLM. Now, I'm not broad brushing BLM. I was a Fed. I went through school with a lot of these folks. Not all of them. I mean, none of them that were there. But I met them in like Arizona and other little places, but not those particular places. And I know how they set up. Look, every one of you commit 3 felonies a day, whether you believe it or not, federally. And they convicted them men, found a judge that would do it federally, and they also made sure it went to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit will rubber stamp everything, unless you're an illegal or some other word.
What KAISER SHUFF is referring to,
pedophile and illegal,
What KAISER SHUFF is referring to, folks, is this: President Trump pardoned those ranchers whose case sparked that Bundy takeover of the Oregon Refuge. And if you guys remember, also one of the rangers was killed. Right, Dwight Hammond Jr. And his son Stephen Hammond were granted executive grants of clemency.
And then it had Sergeant Major Lavoy Finnegan zapped. That's what happened. And he was a retiree.
Yes.
And they were on their way to visit a sheriff. Remember, this is small S state to big S state, okay? Big S means the United States. Small S is the state. And the small S state, the reason why they got everything they got with the clemency and everything, the reason why is because they were pillars of their community. Everybody knew they got set up, and that's why we have our court system the way it is, and it was abused by the last resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to create a white supremacist agenda to try to make it, and he was not a uniter. He was the biggest divider the United States have ever had.
Let me back that up just a little bit, because we're going to have to go in about 7 more minutes. And you made mention of a particular individual that I think some people are not aware of. You made mention of the name Lavoy Finnegan. Okay, so that 2016 occupation that occurred in Oregon as a result of that, as a result of the suit, the judge finding those 2 gentlemen guilty, that resulted in the death of this guy, Lavoy Finnegan. He was shot and killed by Oregon State Police troopers when he drove his truck at a roadblock, and he was trying to escape the wildlife refuge.
It wasn't state troopers. It was actually FBI HRT.
I think you might be right if I remember correctly, but in this particular article, by CNN, says Oregon State Police troopers. But also, in retrospect of that, It was later found out that the FBI did not provide all the information that was relevant to the case.
From the drone.
And that was another major issue in this as well. And we got about 6 more minutes. I want to run this article by you. I know that we've got, oh my God, there's so much stuff coming. Trump right now is in Europe, and he's going to be talking to NATO if he isn't already. And all he's trying to do is attempt to get NATO to pony up the money that each of the member nations owes. And it's either 2% or 2.5% of each individual nation's GDP that they swore contractually that they were going to pony up for NATO, and historically they have not. And the United States taxpayer has instead been taking it on the chin literally for decades as the rest of these countries get to grow their social culture. And so Trump is about to put a... Go ahead.
All Trump's trying to say is pay your bills, yo! Pay your bills!
That's
all he's trying to say.
That's it. And see, these folks in Europe are so... Excuse me, let's back up historically. In Europe, these people are not sufficiently happy with the United States that the Marshall Plan took all of these countries out of abject poverty, including Germany as well. The American taxpayer footed the Marshall Plan to try to rebuild all the nations in Europe following World War II. That wasn't enough. So NATO was created, and then while they were failing to pay money for their own defense, they were instead funneling the money in Europe over to all these various social programs so that they could be the social paradise of all of Europe, which then led to the EU, the European Union, etc.
Yeah.
And just like the standard Mark I, Model I, poverty and welfare pimps, Europe is complaining because their free-flowing American taxpayer-paid stream of free cheese is about to get shut off. And it's about time for them to start paying their own freight. On any fundamental level, what is wrong with that concept? Kaiser, you have
a brother of mine with the B&D. We're talking about this. I can't even remember when. Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
It was 2016, I think.
All right.
No, it was 2015. The end of 2015. I stopped. I was coming back from Indonesia, and I stopped in Berlin, and we had a big chat with a bunch of people. I'm not going to get into names or nothing like this, but we were all just BSing. And I said, so, how's the Tornadoes? That's one of their fighters. It's an EU fighter, by the way, a fighter bomber. It has a lot of neat things that it does. And he goes, well, we got about 5 of them operational now. And I said, what? And I said, WTF, what the fuck? And I said, you guys have, and it's in 100 and something of them. And he goes, yeah, no, they're not working. They're grounded. And they're scavenging parts to get the other ones going. And it was a very small number. And I could not believe that. Look, I was in Europe. I know what they were capable of doing when I was there. And by 2016, I guess they just figured we'd handle them. And Merkel fucked up after, I'm going to tell you when. 2005, or not 2005, 2004, that was the G8 summit in Sea Island.
Okay.
And don't think I'm talking out of school. You guys can look this up. It was on Sea Island. And I was added to her detail before I went and started contracting.
Okay.
And a brother of mine went to her detail. He was actually on her detail.
You got 2 more minutes.
And, okay. Well, anyways, this woman, when she met Obama that same year, not that same year then, but later, I I was asked to, she wanted to go to a dude ranch in Arizona. And I was the before and the after to make sure her visit to that dude ranch would be successful, and it was. And it amazes me how people don't get she was former Stasi, FDJ. Anyways, that's all I have to say on that. We'll talk about it when we have more time.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we might do a show just on that.
Okay.
Me and you.
I have a ton of other topics that I had lined up. Customarily, I have like 30 tabs lined up on the computer over here that nobody can see. And I had about 5 or 6 tabs involving questions that I wanted to ask you about tonight, so we won't be able to get them to tonight. So, again, we're going to have to take off. KAISER SHUFF, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. I grandly appreciate it. And your show, what's it called and where can it be found? Because you have tons of shows archived that people need to listen to.
Just small letters, SWORD, forward point, and the numeral 9. And you guys can discern what you think about me. I don't really care either way, but well, you know, I don't give a fuck.
I believe
I
you.
used to give a fuck. Actually, I used to give a fuck. Now I give a fuck less.
Folks, you've been listening to KAISER SHUFF live and direct right here on the Bloviating Zeppelins, Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon.
Monsieur! Taken what?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I love KAISER. KAISER, I love the hell out of you, my brother. Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins, Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon, right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, or my blog. Lots of activity going on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at reverbnation.com. Promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin Skunkworks and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. And also promotional consideration by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour tomorrow night, a special guest. Gee, it wouldn't possibly be one of the co-owners of the SHR Media Network. Oh, shame for me letting that cat out of the bag. Sackheads Against Tyranny tomorrow night, same bat channel, same bat time, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Sackheads Against Tyranny tomorrow night. Be here, shrmedia.com. God bless. Take care. Good night.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
night. Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.